When I heard Coogler say foundational black American, I decided to stop watching every interview because I didn't want to be disappointed any further. I do like that he basically said that our culture largely came from Africa and now the Facebooks are mad. Yeah, but can't say that on the basis that those Africans were in America before Columbus. It becomes a Mobius strip. This is such a bad faith framing of Kugler's politics because he clearly says, word for word, it's a story about Africans in America, and the history of foundational black Americans comes from West Africa. Y'all are real deal ops on here, taking people's words out of context. Like I said, FBA is CI bullshit. Girl, I'm not about to talk to someone with a Jamaican flag.
For me to do some research about my lineage, and I had that opportunity before with the Panther films, and in that situation, you know, me being a foundational Black American, you know, my family has been here, you know, for over 400 years essentially, you know, in North America, but you know, the Panther films allowed me to travel back to the continent of Africa and spend time there and you know, and contemplate our distant ancestry.
Wait, hold
As it
on.
relates to the
Let me
continent,
go
as it
back. Let me
relates
go
to
back to what Kugler said. Let me go back.
travel
What did he
back
say?
to the continent of Africa and spend time there and you know, and contemplate our distant ancestry as it relates to the continent, as it relates to the diaspora. This movie afforded me the opportunity to go back to my more recent lineage, you know, 100 years or so, you know, and go back to, you know, the Mississippi, a state that I had never been to, you know.
Mm-hmm. And what does he say? He makes it clear that foundational black Americans have ancestry that began in Africa, and some of those traditions were woven into the new culture and identity that our ancestors created through ethnogenesis. Black American culture is unique in that, like our DNA, it is an amalgamation of various cultures. It would behoove folks to educate themselves about Black American history rather than push the ethno side of our identity and culture. And see, that makes the most sense. What that Twitter user said made the most sense because that's literally our history. I do not understand Africans when they go around. They're like, Black American identity makes no sense. Black American culture makes no sense, because what is African American? We were Africans 100 years ago. What is African American? You don't have to talk to somebody who has, maybe even if they lived in America, first generation, second generation, whatever. But you don't have to ask them, oh, okay, maybe you need to take an ancestry test to find out. No, they parents know. One of their parents know, auntie knows, grandma knows. They can go find who is part of their lineage, part of their ancestry. They can go visit them at the potluck or whatever you call it in some countries in Africa. They know. Okay. And that's very different from a Black American. A Black American doesn't know. I have to do research. Okay. I have to sit there and put my little spit in a little tube, take it off to a lab, and then get a generalized idea of where I could be in this part of West Africa. And this litmus test, if you can do fufu this way, and if you can sit there and make jollof rice this way, and if you can sit there and do a two-step this way, then you're African. You made it. No. Black Americans have a very specific kind of history. And so I don't think Africans understand it. They get so upset with the FBA and they say Tariq Nasheed. And I don't agree with everything Tariq Nasheed has said, because sometimes when we do have these FBAs sitting there talking about their history and talking about Black American identity, for some reason, a good amount of people do not want to get on one accord. We are going around and they're insulting Africans. I've done it before. I'm not going to lie. You can see it on my page. I really don't give a fuck half the time, so I'm being a hypocrite. But you go around and they're sitting there not having a full blown conversation with Africans. I understand why, because a lot of them are ignorant. But it gets to a certain point where you have to let them say what they want to say. You have to let them speak and let them reveal their ignorance to you. Sometimes you don't have to sit there and talk about the food. You don't have to talk about the dress, the mud huts, whatever the hell. Just let them speak. Let the Africans say what they want to say. Do not interrupt them. Let them say what they want to say, and you'll notice a pattern between all of these different type of Africans, right? And the African identity was made by a Black American man in the 1980s. Yes, it was a term technically before that, but it was not a term that people were taking seriously as a part of their identity, full blown, right? In the way that we see it today, it was not something that was happening back in the day. No, it wasn't. And so this particular type of situation always happens because the way that Africans perceive Black Americans and their identity see is when we say we have Black American culture is, oh, you don't want to be African. Oh, you don't want to associate with African. And that's not necessarily how all FBA see it. A lot of foundational Black Americans know that they do have some, history in Africa, if they want to be realistic, honestly. But at the end of the day, that was 100 years ago. What about all the other times? That was at least 100 years ago. We've had years upon years upon years upon years upon years, generation upon generation upon generation of people who have built things here in America, who have suffered through things here in America. And so you've had to create a culture from the ground up. And that is not something that's the same as people who, yes, they dealt with colonization, but as people who stayed in the birthing place of their culture. That's not the same thing. You had the ability to stay in the birthing place, in the area of your culture. We did not have that. See, Black Americans, oh my goodness, they have some Africans and they have some African identity in them. They have some Africanness in them. Of course we do. But it didn't stay in just authentically Nigerian, just authentically this particular type of West African. No. Why would it? That's dumb. So I don't understand these supposed Pan-Africanists or these supposed all Black Lives Matter, intellectual African blacks who want to go around and want to be dumb and act stupid like they don't understand why we are the way we are and why we have the history that we have.